Okay, guys, we hopefully if this is your first leadership um, session with us, that these sessions are independently still effective. So if you missed part 1 and part 2, that's okay. This is an entirely separate chunk of learning. But also when Catherine sends out the recording and the slides, she will send out a link to the first and second parts of leadership. So today is going to be particularly about improving your bottom line with exceptional leadership. So we talk about leadership all the time, being a great leader, but I think I like to save this one for last because people really want to know. And Jaden's right in the middle of my gallery of faces today, so I love that. But a lot of accountants will tell their clients, like, you need to get the margins up or the numbers better, or like your debt equity ratio is not good or whatever. But then the business owners are like, okay, how do I do that? And it's through exceptional leadership, right? Because without us being able to inspire our team to achieve goals, we can't achieve our profit goals. So okay, there we go. So I just want to remind you guys, as with all these exchange sessions, I'm standing up right now as per my training from the ATB Zoom expert. And so I'm doing the best that I can to be passionate and engaging and fun with you guys. And so my goal is not to just have you guys watch TV or like have me on in the background or be doing something else or like shut your camera off and be texting. The goal is to have you like really engage, be educated and empowered, and connect as business leaders. Okay, so don't think about this as just like watching TV or having something on in the background. We're all here together virtually, and we're going to give you a lot of opportunity for sharing. And we love questions. And last time, actually, I think was probably the best session because people were giving each other helpful advice. It wasn't just me teaching, people were actually exchanging. And that was the goal for these wonderful women at the chamber. So quick summary of what we're going to learn today. We're going to talk about one of my HR professor's favorite rhymes: meaning and purpose, roles and goals. And I remember thinking this class is going to be so boring. And by the end of it, I was like, oh, this is the key to everything. So we're going to go over that. And hopefully you can remember that little rhyme because it helps me so much, myself and my clients. We're going to talk about improving the bottom line, essential components for change, compliments and positive feedback, the 5 languages of appreciation, money versus trust, because a lot of people think the only way to retain their staff is with money. That's not true. And then we're going to talk about teaching to different learning styles, and last, the benefits of counseling. So I've put these in order of importance to me. So if we don't get to the last couple, then we don't get to the last couple, but we will get to everything before that. And at any point, if you guys want to put up your hand, or I can actually see only 4 faces. So Catherine, if she sees anyone put up their hand or anything in the chat, she'll interrupt me and we'll answer your question, okay? So this rhyme: meaning and purpose, goals and roles. So the idea is that if all of your staff or your team members feel that their job is meaningful, or that they're doing meaningful work that's actually making a difference, that's actually helping the company achieve its mission or helping to change the customer's lives in some way, that's a good thing. If they don't, that's a dangerous thing, okay? Purposeful work is fulfilling, but when they feel like they're not doing work that's purposeful and fulfilling and meaningful, it's like demotivating. It makes them not really want to come to work. It makes them not really like their job, and it makes them open to getting poached. I don't know if you guys have ever had a good employee poached before. I got poached when I used to work for other companies, and it happens a lot. So you got to take really good care of your employees and make sure that they feel that meaning and purpose in their role. Now, the roles and goals, this is the part of the rhyme that I use probably 100 times a day. If there's ever confusion, people not hitting their goals, things not getting done properly, or a question about accountability, it's because we don't have clearly defined roles and goals, and we haven't reiterated those clearly defined roles and goals. So every single person in your company needs to know their role. Like, they need a job title, description, and goals on it, okay? And those goals should be measurable. We should give them feedback every month, and they should add up to you hitting your big goals. And I really, really love getting the staff to help come up with their own goals, because if they helped create it, they're way more bought in. So meaning and purpose, roles and goals. I would write that somewhere. It's really, really served me. Okay, improving the bottom line. So the way to improve the bottom line with a team is number one, clear roles and goals we just talked about. We want to have job descriptions and updated job descriptions. Like every quarter, go over the job description with the employee and make sure, you know, for me, I know with our two companies, things are changing so much because of the pandemic. When you revisit a job description after 3 months, the employee is kind of like, yeah, this doesn't work anymore. You know, like this is missing a lot of things, or I'm doing things you don't know I'm doing. So review those. They're going to be living documents that change, but always have a current job description and KPIs. KPIs is just a fancy way of saying goals. It stands for key performance indicators. But if I give Carissa a really clear role, her role is to be my online coordinator, my online marketing coordinator, and you would list her duties, right? Like manage social media, etc. And then you would have procedures for those duties, right? And then you would have goals. So the goals have to be tied directly to the job, and the goals have to add up to me hitting my big strategic objectives for the year. And my strategic objectives for the company are probably going to include revenue, profit, maybe brand awareness, okay? Or maybe increase average spend per customer. And we can give those goals directly to Carissa, or I can give her a chunk of those goals. So we can say her number one KPI is to achieve the monthly sales goal in the store through marketing. Or we can do like a brand awareness survey, and we can tell her brand awareness right now is like 20% in this town. And by the end of the year, we want to get it up to 50%. So they're very measurable. And we have to make sure when we give people goals that number one, they think it's worth it. And number two, they think it's possible to achieve. And worth it to those amazing employees who just have that innate drive to do a good job, it's worth it to them. They just want to do a good job. They just want to hit that goal. But for some other employees, and we'll get into appreciation languages in a bit here, you have to make sure that it's like they believe they can do it and they believe that it's worth it. Okay? Then measurement. So every single month, so every day, it would be awesome if they have their job description like at their desk or something, or they have their manual with their job description at the front on their desk. But they should be able to look at their job description and their procedures and their goals often. And then every month, you're going to show them their goals versus what they got. Does that make sense? So your goal was to hit 30% brand awareness. We're at 25%. Let's talk about what we can do this month to keep climbing. And in those conversations, try to focus on the future. Do not talk about, oh, looks like you did a bad job. Oh, looks like you missed your mark. It's like they can see that. They can see they got 25 instead of 30. So ask them questions, and remember, questions are your superpowers. That was in one of the previous presentations, and I believe that so much, because if you just come in and tell them, here's your goal, here's how you did, see you later, not going to work. If you come in and you say, okay, here's your goal, here's how you did, talk to me about the month. And then your employee is going to tell you, well, I think that I would have achieved it if I wasn't over here having to do this person's job. And you're all of a sudden you're like, you're doing this person's job, and you can figure out what the barriers are and help knock those over for them. And then next month, since they've told you how they're going to hit it, they're so much more bought into hitting it. Okay. Now, evaluations and reviews, I feel like most people I meet, even successful businesses, are still doing these once a year. They're still only sitting down once a year and saying, oh, yeah, sure, you can have a raise, or no, you can't. And I think that antiquated way of taking care of your employees is, it needs to go. You have to talk monthly. They have to know their goals, and you have to measure their goals monthly. So when you sit down quarterly, every 6 months, or at most once a year, that should be a big conversation where you talk about their long-term goals, how happy they are, talk about the results and outcomes they've achieved, and set new goals together for the next year if you need to. Update the job description with them if you need to. But make sure, like I said, future focused. Like, you want to talk about going forward. And you also want to make sure, I didn't put this in here, but I really should have, you need to know what your employees' personal goals are, and you need to be helping them achieve those, especially with younger staff. And it is so cool to watch, you know, like have an employee's student loans get paid off, or have an employee get the down payment for their house because they hit a target. Like, it is so cool, because then they're so much more invested because we're also hitting their goals. So I want you to remember that happy, healthy, engaged employees directly affect your profit. like whether or not you're paying attention, and you get to choose whether the effect is positive or negative, because unengaged employees, unhappy employees, employees who leave and cause turnover and huge turnover costs are costing you a lot of time and money. Whereas the opposite, the happy, engaged, motivated, goal achieving employees are killing it for you. So it's worth it to make sure they're happy, okay? I think I'm covering up a word here. Yep, okay, essential components for successful change. We're missing FUL on the word successful on this slide. If you don't mind adding that, thank you. So number one, I did my thesis on this actually. So I love change management. It's very terrifying fact that 75% of change initiatives fail, like 75%. 3/4 of everything you try to get people to change in your business fails. That is insane. So for me, I was really interested in this topic. That's why I wrote the paper on it. And I took my 5 top components for successful change right out of my paper, and I talk about them all the time. And I write blogs about it and I make sticky notes about it. But these are the 5 things that I think are the most important. Okay, so I'm talking about getting your employees to use a new software, or getting employees to wear masks at work because we're in the middle of a pandemic, or changing to some form of online selling instead of in-person selling. There will always be changes. And so if you make sure that you do it this way, you're going to be more successful. Okay, so these come straight from hundreds of papers that I read about successful change versus unsuccessful change. So number one, we need to measure employee engagement and motivation before, during, and after the change. So what I love to do is a monthly survey. We do like Google Forms, which is totally free. If you have G Suite, it might not be free if you don't have G Suite. SurveyMonkey is free for just 2 questions. There's a couple other ones, but yeah, Google Forms is great. So is SurveyMonkey. So every month we send out an anonymous email survey and they answer 2 questions. The number 1 question is, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being you're so happy, you're never going to leave this company, you want to retire here, and 1 being I'm actively looking for another job because I hate it here. How happy were you over the last month? 1 to 10. So then the next question is, please tell me why you chose that number. So those are the only 2 questions we're asking every month. And if we don't get 15 surveys back and we have 15 employees, we remind the whole team again until we get all the surveys back in to show them that it's anonymous. It needs to be anonymous, okay? And you have to control yourself. It's like a little kid at Christmas, I find. If you feel like you know who wrote a certain email, refrain from talking to that person about it. You have to keep it anonymous to make it effective, okay? Number 2, sorry, I want to say something else about point 1 there. One change that I've noticed employee engagement really affected by is when you put a new leader in place. So if actually somebody on this call, I have a good point. So one day the owner of the company is leading the company, but then he hires somebody very capable and amazing to step into like an operations manager role. So you want to know before, during, and after, how happy are the employees? Are they happier because of this new leader that's in there? Are they less happy? Are some people down at ones and they've never been down there before? Or is everybody's scores up? You know, like you need to measure that stuff. And changing leadership is probably one of the most major changes, but that really helps me segue into the next point here. If you don't deploy effective leaders during change, it's not going to work. It's going to be one of those things that we try it for a day and it goes away. And we're going to be known as those bosses who, well, they never really stick it through. So I'm sure this will be over in a week or 2. You know, so when I say effective leaders, I mean like people who love the change, people who know the vision for the change, people who are so excited for the change that they get others excited about the change. Because if you have leaders, and I can think of so many examples, it's so insane how many people are in leadership positions that don't read leadership books or don't do leadership training or don't, you know, ask for feedback to be better leaders, but they're out there. So if you try to roll out a change, and I have one in mind right now, roll out a change, 25 employees, we've got teams of 7, and all the team leads, they're like pretty ho-hum about the change. One of them is even like, yeah, this won't stick. Nothing ever sticks, so don't worry about it. That did not work. And that was like a $60,000 software program. So that's what's going to happen if you don't have effective leaders. And effective leaders inspire people and compel people to do what they want, right? If you care about your people, if you're effectively leading them, they're going to want to do a good job for you. So number one, measure employee engagement. Number two, deploy effective leaders. And number three, plan out the change. This sounds ridiculous because you're like, well, of course we'll plan it before we do it, but most people don't, including me sometimes. Like, you think, oh, we'll just change that. But you don't plan out, okay, what are people's schedules going to look like? How is this going to affect, especially with COVID, you know, like whatever we hear today, okay, plan it out. Like, how much space do we need between people in the store? Is online sales going to have to be a bigger thing? Are people not going to be allowed to Christmas shop? Like, you actually have to plan out the scenarios so that you can show your team that we've planned it out. A great example of this, if I'm seeming confusing right now, is switching somebody from a 5-day work week to a 4-day work week. And I've done this with a lot of clients. People friggin' love it. Like, they love it. 3-day weekends every week. So before we do that though, we take everybody and we make an actual schedule for like 6 months, like really make that schedule and make sure that it's going to work with your workflows, make sure it's going to work with your clients, because some clients like to deal with certain people, and make sure that your people want to do it. So fully plan it out before you change it. Fourth, you want to establish and reiterate a clear and compelling vision. So as a leader, I think this is one of the most important things we can do. And we usually don't do it enough. We usually get caught up in the day-to-day, that like the little things, the emails, oh my gosh, the emails. But the compelling vision should pull your people towards it. They should be working on their goals because they want to achieve that vision as much as you do. And them wanting to achieve the vision as much as you do comes from you caring about them authentically. Okay, now establish a clear vision. That's one thing. Let's write a vision statement. Let's talk about where we want to be in 5 or 10 years. Like, we want to be North America's top accounting firm, or whatever that vision is, right? And included in that, we also want to pay our employees more than any other accounting firm does. Something like that. Okay, so here's the vision. But if you tell them once and you put it in the manual under the vision statement, or you put it on your website and then you never talk about it again, they forget, because we talk a lot about a lot of stuff and we can't expect them to remember what's the most important. Okay, so you have to reiterate the vision, like every day at every staff meeting, anytime anything hard is happening, anytime we're doing, my online administrative coordinators in the room, Mindy, anytime we're doing a very excruciating project that takes you long time to build, you have to reiterate the vision, which I think I need to do after this call, because I haven't been doing that enough. But like, we have to make people want to do it. Does that make sense? I don't know about you guys, but first time, yeah, Catherine.
I just wanted to, because everything you're saying, it's funny. Nika and I are over here nodding like, yes. And it's funny. Nika owns a business, I don't know if everybody knows, Organic Tan. And so she's here like taking pictures of your screen and sending it to her business partner, because, you know, leadership is so important. So I just love that. And then I wanted to point out, so Grant Zobel made a comment that the Microsoft Forms is free with your Office 365. So when you were talking, so when you were talking about doing those surveys, so I just wanted to point that out before we left that too far.
Awesome.
But I'm also, I mean, that happy, healthy, engaged employees, I love that. And then everything you were saying, as you bring them into your vision, when you're talking about bringing them into that vision so that they're excited for it, that's what's going to make them happy and healthy, because they feel like they're making a difference, right? So
and then you go back to meaning and purpose, roles and goals,
right?
Yeah.
All of a sudden you feel like you're doing something with value and purpose, like you said. So I'm just kind of curious, does anybody on here have an example to share about that, as they've brought employees on to the vision and such, to see better work ethic and them, you know, enjoying their position more? I'm sure somebody has an example of that. Anyone?
And if you don't, I do.
I'm sure Carissa does. Can I call on Carissa? No? Oh, Grant does. Go ahead, Grant, and then Carissa.
We used a book called Traction to kind of manage all that stuff.
Oh.
And so this is a Traction book.
Oh.
By Gina Wickman, and it kind of manages all the goals and roles of people, and you know, it's all succinct kind of in one book. So you know, especially if you're, you know, a micro business and you don't have a lot of money to spend on consulting, business consulting, it's an easy way to get into it. Kelly mentioned about like connecting with people once a month versus once a year. We kind of do it quarterly, but we also connect daily. We have a huddle every morning.
Awesome.
And we say, what are we doing? What's the most important thing you can do today? And then we report on that the next day. Did you do it or did you not do it?
I love it.
And also from Great by Choice, Jim Collins' smack recipe, we kind of do that as well. Those are things that people can do every day. And the one thing I really feel important about in your roles and goals is give people goals that they have 100% control of. So
Yes.
a person doesn't have control of if somebody buys, but they have control if they invite somebody to buy.
Yeah.
So
Great
measure what people have control of, as well as your vision and goals, but don't make them accountable for what they don't have control of.
That's such great. I agree completely. That's awesome. Hey, I have to ask you now, have you read Rocket Fuel?
Haven't read Rocket Fuel.
Oh, you're going to love it. It's by Gino Wickman too, and it is freaking amazing. It's about how all businesses pass the $2 million ceiling by having an integrator and a visionary. It's like mind-blowing.
Right.
If you love traction, you'll love that book.
I love traction, so that'll be my next book.
Awesome. Awesome. Do you want me to keep going, Catherine? You're muted.
I think Carissa was ready to share something. Or do you have anything to share, Carissa?
Yes, sorry, I was speaking and I was on mute. So I've unmuted myself now. And I will say, since working remotely from one another, it's been more challenging, I think, to feel that same inspiration and to still be able to share that vision with each other. So I just had this idea that I wrote down in my journal for when I go back to the office, that I'd like to create like an electronic vision board for our team. So I think I've been, throughout the pandemic, good about keeping in touch with our employees. Like we have a weekly coffee meeting that's informal, and then we also have monthly coaching sessions. We have monthly unit calls, but it's been about, I guess, trying to keep them engaged for that end goal, which is A, the expectation that they take care of themselves during this pandemic, B, that we take care of our business clients, and see that we're all working together for the common goal of trying to grow our markets. But I would love if you have any ideas for how to create like an electronic vision board that we could somehow share electronically or remotely with one another.
Pinterest?
Has anybody done that?
No, but
I just learned
Pinterest,
about, I just learned about a tool called Palette.
Palette?
It's Palette, yeah, and there's a few different modes and models you can use, and it can be interactive, and you can could run it live on a session like this, or you can use it in your teams, and there's different templates you can use. So it's called Palette.
oh,
It's kind of cool.
very
I'm just
cool.
learning about it myself. So
I love that idea, an electronic vision board. Yeah, if anybody has ideas even after the call, send an email to me and I can pass that on. But I think that's such a smart thing to do with everybody distant from each other at this time. So that's very cool. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt. Does anybody
No
have
worries.
a comment before Kelly goes on? Looks good.
I know it's a lot. So
Oh.
I'm always, and like, it was so funny because I was talking to Lindsay from ATV and she's like, maybe you could like take out a bit of content. I'm like, I already cut out 90%. Like I try to give so much value in an hour because I want people to just get it all, but I understand it can be a bit overwhelming. So we chunked it down again. So hopefully this is good.
It's amazing content. So keep going. We love it. Thank you.
Okay, so the fifth one, and originally I only had 4 in this presentation, but I realized over the years that if you don't create urgency, some people just will never get on board. So you have to be careful with creating urgency, but what you really have to do is, along with these other 4 components, when you're making a change, you have to let people know that there is some urgency here, like something bad will happen if we don't change. And make sure they feel safe, make sure they know you're not going out of business, but let them know, like, if, you know, I'm trying to think of an example. This is, I guess, like I talked to my team the other day about our online program. Sorry, I have allergy, runny nose, not COVID, just one sec. I talked to our team about this the other day. We completely transformed our coaching business from a one-on-one consulting company to an online coaching company because of COVID. And so we had a conversation about getting new clients, right? And so you have to kind of create some urgency around, like, okay, like everything's good now. And our one-on-one clients, we're like graduating them and stuff. And it's like, and now we need some clients, you know, like it can be that easy. It can be that easy that like, okay, guys, like we need to step this up. Or it can be more serious, you know, like we might have to cut this division if we can't set this up, or people won't be able to get their bonuses this year if we don't step this up. But just giving them some true information that gives them some urgency, along with all these other 4 pieces. Okay, so compliments and positive feedback. A lot of people tell me I'm super positive and I'm super motivating and inspiring, but, oh, Catherine, go ahead.
We have a question over here before we go on to compliments, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Nika has a question for her business.
Yeah.
Sorry, I've just like, you've got my head spinning and the wheels are turning. So I don't know what you know about my business specifically, but we do spray tans and teeth whitening. And so obviously I don't work in the business because I work here at the chamber. But one of the things that I'm finding is that my employees are extremely unmotivated because right now we are really slow, and when the girls aren't booked, they're not coming in. So sometimes, you know, they used to work, like when they were scheduled from, you know, 10 to 5, they were busy the entire time and barely had time for a lunch break. Whereas now they come in for an appointment, maybe 2, and sometimes like they're booked for a week and they're not coming in at all. And so what's tough is keeping them engaged that way. But the way that our business structure is that like I can't just pay them to go in there and sit there and do nothing, but realistically there isn't anything else for them to do because I handle all the other back end stuff. So like, do you have any tips for a structure like that, or have you ever dealt with anything like that?
Yeah, what's your question?
Like how do I keep them motivated through that when they're only working like ridiculously part-time?
Okay, and they're supposed to be working full-time?
Yeah.
And they were before?
Yeah.
Well, okay, so I have so many questions for you. I'm going to try to keep this succinct. I would really look at the budget first of all, look at what's coming in and what's going out, and decide if, because you know, it might be smarter to keep one and have one of the other ones go on EI or something. Mm-hmm. Like do a layoff or something, but that's obviously the last resort. So you're asking how we can keep them engaged even though they're not busy? I would ask, how can we make them busy? Because you're right, sitting around doing nothing is, so I would, do you keep track of how people hear about you? Like every customer you've ever had, do you know how they found you?
Pretty much, yeah. When we get a new customer, they have to fill out like a consent form, and on the bottom of that consent form, it asks how they heard about us. Generally, it's between social media and other people.
Okay, so then if I were you and I could afford it, I would have them on social media constantly when they're not doing TANs, if that's what usually works to bring in people. And a lot of people are on social media now, right now, so that's good. The other thing is, do you do like a monthly marketing report where you look at your website, like how many people come to your website and where they come from and how many people actually convert into like booking an appointment?
Yeah, so the problem is that our website isn't where we have bookings come in. It actually is through like a separate booking system. So I can see who came to my site and like bought something, but I can't see, like it just shows me that they like went to this page and that was it.
Okay, so how many people come to your like most popular page a month?
Well, my most popular page a month is definitely my online shopping.
Okay, so how many people are coming there a month?
I would say in the last, like we just did a sale, so this last couple weeks was really good. I think we had like 40 or 50 in the last month, which is pretty good for us.
Okay, if the restrictions don't shut you guys down, I honestly would do some Facebook ads because we could get a lot more people to that website. Sorry, I'm trying to go back here. And I would get my girls actively doing the things that bring in the leads and the customers. Do you know what I mean? Because usually they're working just in the business for you, doing the tans and the teeth whitening. But if they can work on the business for you and help you generate more leads, what we have to do is learn, like, how are people behaving right now? Like, what are people most likely to do right now? Like, and what product or service is most appropriate for them? Like, maybe the tans aren't the most appropriate. So teeth whitening, you know, like, is that maybe something you want to focus more on? So I would get them working on business building activities instead of sitting around waiting for tans. And if you have that data, which is great, like if you know like 80% of all leads come from social media, get them going hard on social media, do contests, do like get stuff, engaging stuff going, share, and invest in some Facebook ads, especially if you know where all your customers live. Like if you know that most of your customers live on the west side, do targeted Facebook ads to their postal code with their ages. Like, you know so much about your customers, and Facebook ads are so cheap. Yeah, that's what I would get them to do. Help you build the business instead of, I hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so compliments and positive feedback. A lot of people think that I'm like Pollyannish, but I'm not. I'm totally a realist. I just know that being positive works. So if your eyes are kind of glazing over and you during this part and you're like, oh, I know we should compliment them, please try to refrain from doing that, or please try to refrain from thinking, oh, I already know this. We have to give compliments and positive feedback often, like really, really often, because when we give constructive criticism, it really brings people's morale down. So we need like 40 compliments and happy things and observations to really bring them back up to the level that we want. Okay. So just train your brain, which is the opposite of how our brains actually work. Train your brain to look for good things instead of bad things or scary things or wrong things, you know? And just for me, I even set reminders. Like if you have to set reminders to look for good things to compliment people on, do that. Try to catch them doing something right, you know? And then second, never follow up a compliment with a but. Somebody, when I was really, really early on in management, told me about the compliment sandwich, and I was disgusted because it's so inauthentic and it's so weird and it makes the people feel so uncomfortable and it makes you feel so uncomfortable. So I don't know if you've heard about this, but the compliment sandwich is like, hey, good job yesterday. And then you really messed up this project. And then I really like your shirt. Don't do that. Like just separate those conversations. Okay. So if we have feedback, we want to talk about future, hitting a goal in the future. Let's talk about hitting a goal in the future, but don't make it weird. Okay. And I know as Canadians, we really like to be, nice and subtle. And I have so many clients that are like, well, I hinted at it. It's like, no, just tell the person. Okay. So be more direct, just be kind and direct. Exactly what we need. Just be very clear, kind and direct. Okay. And don't do compliment sandwiches. And yeah, the last point I wanted to say, positivity is good because it works. So give people compliments as often as possible, but make sure they're authentic and you will get more positive behavior to compliment. Okay. You don't have to believe in the law of attraction. This is just the truth. This is if you act more positive, you give out more compliments, you get more positive behaviors to compliment. That's a fact. Okay. Anybody? I can only see 5 faces. So any chats or anything, Catherine? I do have some questions coming up for people.
There's a few people, I mean, everybody really loved that you said, Kathy said, I completely agree, kill the sandwich. So, yeah. And then the but, so everybody's in agreement that those but conversations and the compliment sandwiches and stuff, they still kind of deplete people. So that's kind of the general consensus. I don't see any questions other than people agreeing with you. So.
Okay. And just one more note on that, especially for women, people are used to women being very soft and caring and kind. So we have kind of been raised by society to be that way. So sometimes with your employees, if you all of a sudden show up very direct and authentic, they'll feel intimidated. So I would preface it and be like, hey guys, I just wanted to let you know, like, I'm working on being more clear. So maybe you can help me with that. So I'm going to check in on that. You know, when you tell your employees, I've noticed that I'm not great at something and I'm going to be working on it. Can you help me with that? They love it. It's awesome. Yeah, clear and kind, like direct and kind does not mean like grouchy or stern. Or actually, I need to share a story about Ryan. Laughing because he's my business partner in the business that we share an employee in, and he used to get really grumpy and like tense when he had to have conversations about discipline or about improving performance. And he was telling me about it. And I'm like, did you look like this when you went in there? Did you actually say those things? Like, you got angry? And it's funny because he's like the nicest person in the entire world, the kindest, most joyful person I've ever met. But he would get into this weird like Hulk state to go into the meetings. And I'm like, that's the opposite of what you do. You use your tools, the job descriptions, the goals, policies, procedures, and you be kind, especially when you're having a conversation about performance. Just be kind, be direct. Okay, I want to brag about this book that I read.
There's a quick comment. There's a quick comment before you move on. Rudy said, how about documenting positive events and bringing those up on the reviews? Little things, I think he's trying to say equal big things or something like that. Little things to big things.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Yeah, absolutely do that. And I love that you said documenting too, because we can't remember everything. It's impossible. So you should have an employee document in the cloud or an actual file and make notes for your review for sure. Also give those compliments in the moment, because I can't remember who said it or exactly how he said it, but a compliment, like if you think of a compliment for someone and you don't give it to them, it's like wrapping a present and not giving it to them, which I think is pretty cool. Okay. 5 Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace is written by the same 2 guys, Gary Chapman and Paul White, who wrote the 5 Love Languages. Who has done the 5 Love Languages with their partner and has been like amazed by how much it, yeah, me too. We're total opposites. And then it was like, oh, you think cleaning the house is love? I want a present. Like it's so, you really, like, I loved that so much. So when this came out and I started looking at it, this is the only thing in 6.5 years that I even considered getting certified in. Like, I've always avoided the action coach chains. I've always avoided this type of trainer, that type of trainer. I wanted to be an independent. I wanted to use my experience in education to teach. I didn't want to be stuck in someone's curriculum. But this was one thing that I almost got myself certified in. Because I believe in it so much and it works so well. So I have this little chart right here underneath my computer, and it has all my staff's names, and it has their most preferred language of appreciation, their second most preferred, and their least preferred. Because unfortunately, gifts, my love language, is nobody else's love language. So for years and years in all the companies, I would spend all the money and all the gifts, and people would tell me that they didn't feel appreciated. And I would just be blown away because I gave them so much stuff. And when I discovered this, and I realized some people want to spend half an hour with you a week. They want to sit with you and talk because quality time is important. Or they want to have a staff party, or they want to go out for dinner as a team. And if that's not your love language or your appreciation language, it does not come naturally to you, and you have to work at this. So that's why I have a chart with everybody's names and their appreciation languages and their least preferred method. Because when you don't appreciate them in their preferred method, they don't feel appreciated. It's literally a waste of time. So you can search for it online. It's $25 now, which I respect because it's so amazing. It used to be free, then it was $15, now it's $25, but it's so worth it. It will save you so much wasted appreciation money in the future. So if you can Google Motivating by Appreciation, the MBA inventory, and it should be the 5 appreciation languages in the workplace. The quiz should be there. And if you get all your employees to do it, it's like magic.
Kelly, there's a few comments, but first I'm going to throw in mine just because I can. So at the chamber, we started it. It may have been pre-COVID. I can't remember. We started Motivation Monday. So sometimes we have Motivation Monday. So I feel like I should be bringing you in for a Motivation Monday. And we can do our language of appreciation. I think that's so cool. But
that'd be fun.
So I hope I don't say this wrong, Yenny. I hope I'm saying the right way. But she said it's also important to understand people's culture if you have a multicultural team.
Oh my gosh, yes. I don't know if anyone here saw my podcast last week with Brian Lanier. on diversity and inclusion. Oh, you saw it, Krista? Awesome. Oh yeah, you shared it. Thank you. It was a transformational conversation, and really we focused on diversity and inclusion in the workplace, and it was, I absolutely agree. It's so important, and I really think that vodcast and the workshops that Brian and Tom are doing, I really think it's going to change the world. I really do. I think that we're going to have such diverse and inclusive workplaces, and I don't think we're going to have to talk about racism with the next generation. I seriously don't. So if you guys haven't seen that, where can they find the podcast? It's on YouTube or my Facebook page or Business Can Be Better podcast site, businesscanbebetter.com. The Better Business Podcast. Search any of those things, but it's with Brian Lanier, and transformational conversation about inclusion and diversity and racism. So sorry, Yenny, I just went off on a tangent, but I'm just still so inspired about that and the action that we've been taking through that. Yes, it is really important to acknowledge that and make people feel safe to share and to understand that they have different ways of thinking and different cultural ways of being. So thank you for adding that.
You know, I went to a training where we were talking about hiring different cultures, and they were talking about just the way that their culture perceives compliments or criticism or anything. So it's really good that in a multicultural environment to just have those discussions and understand you know, how you interpret different things, and because lots of times miscommunication comes down to the simplest thing. Now somebody else made a comment. Kendra made a comment. I'll just read it, and then it would be great if Kendra could speak to it. She said, there was a lady at the Alberta Women's Entrepreneur Day conference last week whose tech company is all about electronically catching people doing the right things and how much it improves performance.
Wow.
Yeah, Kendra, can you speak to that a little bit?
That's
or
awesome.
Are you there?
I can't really speak to it because it's not my company, but she said, yeah, that's what her technology is about. And it was just really cool to hear, though, that it was about catching things done right and having that appreciation. And I just thought that was amazing. And I don't remember the lady's name. It was a lot of Zoomies going on these days, but yeah, it was just really neat to hear.
Awesome. So those 5 languages of appreciation are tangible gifts, quality time, words of affirmation, acts of service, and physical touch. So obviously we're not doing that right now, guys, the physical touch. And obviously in the workplace, it's not like the 5 love languages. It's like a high five or like a tap on the shoulder, if that's their thing. But right now, yeah, no touching. So any questions about this? I highly recommend the book.
So we actually may or may not have found a free resource that may or may not have had the appreciation languages quiz that we may or may not.
Hooray! Let's post that in the chat.
Sorry?
Let's post that in the chat.
Yeah,
Thank
I'll have
you.
to find it. But yeah, we found it was actually kind of interesting because the staff in the office like all had the same first way of appreciation, and then the our techs had the same, we're all kind of similar for what was their first way of appreciation.
Oh, cool.
Even just like in hindsight, it's like, okay, the way we communicate in the office is going to be different than when we communicate with the techs. And like,
absolutely.
we need to hammer like, hey, like when we think they did a good job, even though we're not on the site, like how can we communicate? Because they're all words of affirmation. Whereas like in the office, we're quality time. So it's kind of an interesting, and then we're sort of in the process of building an action plan as to how we can actually get everyone, like how we can kind of use those effectively, knowing that. So we had a
awesome.
So I think we were a bit lucky there, but yeah.
I think maybe that's the short form. So that's awesome. If you could share that in the chat. Yeah. I think that one will tell you like their first language, maybe their second, but the $25 one will also give you like an. Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Did it give you like a good write-up too? So you really don't need to read the book?
I don't know about the book, but like it kind of gave like, there was like a little graph of the different communication styles and like communication actions and what to avoid for all.
Oh, awesome. That's amazing.
Touch, so.
It doesn't include physical touch? Yeah. Smart. So yeah, then if you can find that,
Sure.
you don't even have to read the book because there is a really good description with the quiz. Okay, so does anyone want to share what their appreciation language is? Like if they think they know it, or appreciation language you think your staff is?
Mine's 100% words of affirmation. And we had a bit of a, like this month, we were trying to get everybody to hit 80% of their SMAC. And the whole team, if we did it for 5 days, we would go out for wings, but my team's mostly in Calgary, so that wasn't going to work very well. And I suggested a $50 Amazon card, and they were all on board with that. So maybe gifts.
Yeah, maybe. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else? It's okay if no, because it's 12:55. But if anybody does want to,
Sure.
please speak now.
I was quality time, which I was kind of surprised. Well, I wasn't surprised about, but I thought I was words of affirmation. And then I kind of had an interesting reflection onto how I relate with other people and like what makes me feel good and what doesn't. So that was kind of a neat eye opener.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. I love that book, that concept. Does anyone else want to share? Okay, really quick, guys. There's a study that I quote all the time because people think that to keep the best employees, you have to pay them the most. And don't get me wrong, I always aim to pay my employees the most. Like that is a thing that I have decided to do ever since I started to be in business. I want to be the best. I want to charge high prices and provide the most value. And I want to pay my employees the most. But money isn't as motivating as a lot of people think for everybody, okay? So there are some people that are really money driven. Whatever your money story was, whatever your money situation was growing up as a kid, it all kind of affects things. So I was a money kid because we were really, really broke. And as soon as I started running businesses, I would get performance bonuses based on profit. So I learned very, very quickly how to make the business more profitable. That's why I do what I do today. So for me, money is very motivating. But for a lot of people, money is simply a hygiene or a maintenance factor. So if they don't have enough money, like to fit their self-image, like if they're getting paid lower than they think they deserve, they will be unhappy and they will feel bad about it. And they might even look for other jobs. But if you pay them above what they would have already been satisfied with, as you keep going up in pay, it makes less and less of a difference in driving performance. So one large incredible study found that a 1-point increase in the trust scale of management in the workplace has the same effect on life satisfaction as a 40% raise in income. Imagine if instead of $100,000 a year, you gave them $140,000 a year, but all you really had to do was make them trust you 1 point more on a scale of 1 to 10. 10 being you completely trust your supervisor and 1 being you completely distrust your supervisor. So you can get people to trust you 1 point more, that increases their life satisfaction as much as a 40% raise in income. So be a good leader, read The Speed of Trust, read 7 Habits, keep your word, care about your people, get them to trust you because it's way, way cheaper.
We have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's, we love these leadership ones. Nika and I are over here just like, oh yeah, that's such a good point. But Nika said, and maybe you're going to get into this. She goes, okay, so how do we get that trust? How do we increase that 1 point of trust?
Yeah, I took that out because it's in the other one. So if you send the recordings of the first and second one, but yeah, so keep your word. Okay. And that means like everything. If you say, let's meet in my office at 11, and then you like just constantly bump the meeting back or you just don't come because it was just a staff meeting, that stuff, they see that. Remember that you're leading by example, whether you intend to or not. They're watching you. So if you say you're going to do something, do it. Don't talk about customers behind their back. Don't talk about other employees in front of other employees. Do things legally. Like I know I met one business owner who was just shocked that her employees were stealing time from her, but she was not paying taxes. She was taking cash into the company. Obviously, I didn't work with that person when I found that out. It's just a free session. But I'm like, you are leading by example. You are stealing from the CRA and they're stealing time. Like You really have to show up and just keep your word and be the way you want them to be, and also honor your word. So if you guys make an agreement, like we're going to meet at 1 o'clock, but Kelli talked too much and we went past, you make an agreement, like text the person and say, would it be okay if we made a new agreement and we met at 1:30? And they say yes, that's still honoring your word. Do you know what I mean? And trust takes time, but really caring about them, that's the most. Being authentic and authentically caring about them and having them their back, that's the fastest. And I hope you guys get that through this whole thing. It has to be authentic. Like, it has to be. If you can't authentically care about your people and you can't authentically do all this stuff, you're not in the right place. So trust buckets is a concept from Stephen Covey or his son, Stephen Covey. I can't remember which book. So either Speed of Trust or 7 Habits, but a trust bucket is like really, really, really easy to kick over. If you break somebody's trust or you hurt their feelings or you don't keep your word, that bucket just gets dumped right out. It's empty. But to fill it up, it gets filled up like drop by drop by drop. So every time you keep your word, every time you have a good experience with one of your employees, you put a drop in the bucket. So you want to keep filling that bucket up and you don't ever want to kick it over. And if you're really like visual like me, if you have a good imagination, you can kind of picture a bucket between you and everybody. Like, oh, my bucket. If you could see a bucket in between you two, it'll remind you, don't kick the bucket over. And then we have to remember that not everyone learns the way that we learn. So for me, reading and writing, that's why all my slides, I try so hard to put pictures, but all my slides are all words, because I'm like, reading and writing, that's how I learn and that's how I teach, right? So for other people, they might need more videos. They might need to like think about what I'm saying. They might need to go try it and learn by doing. Just remember that if you're ever having a challenge with an employee and they're not getting it, you're probably teaching them the way that you learn, and ask them if you can teach them in a way that is better for them. This is my last slide. I just wanted to throw this in because especially in the last, oh my gosh, what has it been now, 9 months? It's getting hard for some people. There have been a lot of suicides. There's been a lot of depression. I've had even the happiest of clients tell me that they're really struggling. And I personally have been struggling. We're not designed to deal with grief for this long and with no end in sight, right? So counseling is normal. Counseling is good. Counseling is great. And I really, really, really beg you to help me spread the word to get rid of the stigmatism about counseling. You're not crazy if you go to counseling. In fact, I go to counseling proactively. You know, my husband and I go to counseling proactively because we want to maintain a happy marriage. I want to stay sane and happy instead of depressed, you know? So if you can at all advocate for counseling or try it yourself, counseling is a really good way to take care of yourself so that you're able to take care of others. Because if you guys aren't running on a full cup, you just can't be the leader that I've been telling you to be today, okay? And this question is for anybody who's willing to share. What are you committed to take away and apply in your business? This will really cement the learning for you.
While a few people are maybe thinking about what they want to say, I just want to kind of put, say some of the comments that have come in. So Kendra said, can you trust someone at a 0? I'm not sure exactly what that means. Do you have a
Sure,
comment?
you can make your scale 0 to 10. You decide on your scale.
Okay. Rudy made a comment, language of integrity. I like that. Kathy said, ethics are huge. Carissa, who you are is how you lead. I love that. Very true.
That's why counseling. Yeah, if you don't have your house in order, you're showing up in your business like that. And your business is being affected by that.
Absolutely. You know, we talk about that here at the chamber all the time, that mental health. Good. I talk to members all the time, and they're very transparent, but I know people are struggling because it's so hard to navigate this time. You never know, are we going into a shutdown? Are we not? And then you're struggling to come out of the shutdown. You're struggling to figure out everything. So the mental health is huge right now. So please,
and when when you have good mental health and when you have a positive mental attitude, you're able to be creative and you can think of solutions. But if you're depressed and you're shut down and you're angry and you're scared, you're not creative. So again, I'm not trying to be super Pollyannish here and say, there's no pandemic, just act happy. No, be really authentically happy and feel good, because that's what unlocks creativity.
Right. And you know, the COVID, we hear it, but the COVID fatigue is real. Just going to the store and putting on a mask and making sure you're socially distancing and all of that is exhausting, let alone trying to run your business. So yeah, I agree with Kelli-Rae when it's make sure you have a support team behind you, because it's a lonely time. It's a hard time. And this is new for everyone, right? So do not pass that up, an opportunity to at least have supports. Now I just want to see if there's, is past session recordings available by any chance? Yes, Yuki, they are. They are on YouTube, on Kelli-Rae's TMH Consulting YouTube channel, right? Your channel?
TMH Business Coaching and Consulting.
Coaching. I'm sorry. Yes.
That's okay.
So the past ones are all on there. Grant said he's going to read Rocket Fuel and review the 5 languages. Yeah.
Gonna love it.
Kathy, it feels so cold because we were built for community. I agree.
Absolutely. And that's why we need to do the community the way that we can. Stay on the Zoom calls, stay having FaceTime calls with your family, like stay in connection. And guys, you always ask for book recommendations, so I always like to include a slide. You guys are going to get these slides emailed to you, so you can check those out when they come.
Can we just quickly go to Rudy? Rudy said, take our mental health first aid course. Rudy, will you tell us a little bit about that? I'm very intrigued.
Yeah, I didn't know you had that.
It's we have a couple of first aid, what we call mental health first aid courses. One is mental health first aid in the workplace. You can have it as a half day or a full day. And basically what it talks about is just more or less, you kind of create an environment at work where people kind of look out for one another. And it talks about visual cues, people having difficulties possibly at home, or just situations at work, and how to approach and how to, I don't know, kind of notice, kind of not necessarily be vigilant with it, but just to kind of look out for those things. The course itself, it entails some dialogue. Your people are sharing some personal, obviously, experiences with it. You deal with some very serious issues, though, as well. But you know, the thing is that if you're in a caring workplace, and Kelly, you were talking about if you're afraid or you're feeling down or anything along those lines, if you're going into a workplace where you feel like you're getting support, it's not a stress going into work. You know that people have your back, so to speak. You know what I mean? You create that. And the thing is that you're also makes you aware about your own cues when you go into work. So like I said, it encourages a lot of dialogue. So you know what I mean? Like I said, it gives you kind of a checklist for yourself and what to others. So it's matter of fact, I took it myself yesterday, and the people that teach it are like I said, are very well qualified. It's a course that's approved by the Mental Health Commission of Canada. So they're the ones that actually wrote it. So the thing is that it comes from a very good place.
Rudy, how much does that cost?
$155.
And is that for a whole team or per person?
Per person.
Okay.
And you can arrange a private class for that. We did it by video yesterday, so you can even do it that way.
Wow, that sounds great. Thank you very much.
I could send you the information on it if you wish, Catherine.
Yeah, Rudy, if you would send that to me, that'd be great. I would love to. It would be good for our members to know about that.
For sure.
Thank you. And then Carissa made a point. I'm going to be more clear and consistent with vision sharing and create an electronic team vision board. I'm going to be more bold and clear, direct leader. I'm going to keep taking care of myself. Thank you for saying that, Carissa. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. All those are great, great, great things. Awesome. Anybody else want to share? I think we kept everybody on till the end this time, did we? Oh no. Everyone leaves at 1. So I tried to get it all in before 1. If you guys thought that I did a good job today, I would be absolutely grateful if you could Google TMH Business Coaching and Consulting and leave us a review with comments. They help us so much, like so much. I would really appreciate that. So thank you guys so much for being with us today. And if you're going to get the slides, you're going to get the recording, you're going to get the past recordings. So if you ever have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. We're on all the social media and Google, of course. And I hope you guys have just a brilliant day and good luck through these new restrictions that are coming out. I know that you guys can be the creative, positive leaders that you want to be. So here we go. We can do it.
Thank you, Kelly, for everything you've been doing for us. These have been great. So, and thanks
Thanks for
everyone for
having
your
me.
participation.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Amazing.